So we have Dr. Prasanth today. He is a doctorate in chemistry with about 28 years experience in the various types of laboratory, pharmaceutical, chemical, petrochemical, petroleum, various types of laboratory. Did about 7 presentations in international journals on this particular subject, and certification from ASQ on NABOSH and Lean Six Sigma, and additionally trainer for laboratory quality and safety courses, ISO, ISE 17025, 45001, laboratory safety practices, ASCOM, etc. I think we are proud to welcome you, sir, and looking forward to learn from your knowledge. Thank you very much for taking the effort and coming here for the time what you have spent on this. Wish you all the very best. And the platform is for you now.
Yes, good morning, everybody. How are you today?
Very good.
Good.
Very good, sir. Very good morning to you.
Very good morning. So, today we will start our journey. I was just listening to a conversation between SP and some of you that you are in that mode, but you are not accelerating. There are some roadblocks out here. As that is normal. If you are feeling that, it means you are on the way. Okay. So today, actually, thanks to SP for this really, this is very community services and professional community services that actually he is providing the platform for many of the people to share their knowledge and others to gain the knowledge. And again, sharing knowledge is always that. If you have knowledge and you are not sharing, it means there is a crime, but there is no law for that one.
Very good point.
Okay. Today, actually, most of them, we can use the chart when there is a question. And we'll take in between SP, who is going to take the questions over there? Who can tell me?
Javier? Javier?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Will you support him?
Yeah, of course.
On the chart? Yeah. Javier will support him.
Perfect. Very good. So you can put your question in the chart, or in some cases you can raise your hand in between, and then KVR can open your speaker, and then you can talk. So we are talking about today about the ISO IEC 17025. How many of you are aware of this, or directly or indirectly involved in this? Anyone? You can just raise your hand in the put it in the chart. Yes, no. So we can see that how many are there.
We have Surya Narayana. Actually, he's doing a lot of consultancy on this area.
Wow, great. So we have so many. So again, this is nothing that teaching the session. This is a common discussion. We all our expertise are here, and then we will discuss more things.
We have Mr. Srilal. Actually, is the head of QA in DRDO laboratory.
Wow, great.
And, they have a lot of laboratories, and they are going for 17025 also.
Perfect. Excellent. So my screen is stuck. Why? I need to check it out.
It's okay.
Okay. Now, if you go and look at the title of this standard, you can see this is general requirements for competency of testing and calibration laboratories. So there are 4 different terms has come over here. One is competence, second is testing, third is calibration, and fourth is laboratories. Now we need to understand what exactly the laboratory mean. Any idea? Who can help me to see that who is, what is the laboratory? Any definition from anybody?
So far, nothing, sir.
Where we do experiment.
You are doing experiment. Okay. What else?
Testing.
Testing.
What
testing.
else? Okay, good. So let us go to standard definition of the laboratory. What does it say? Any lab, any organization or any body who is performing testing and or calibration. So any organization who is performing testing and or calibration or the sampling, either all of them or one of them is known as the laboratory. Actually, the addition of this standard till now sampling, even if you are doing only sampling, you can call yourself as a laboratory and you can acquire an accreditation. Is it a new, who can use this standard? Any laboratory who wants to develop their management system. No need to go for accreditation at all. Our accreditation body can use this to accredit your lab as per this standard. Or customers say, I want to know whether your lab is accredited or not, or you are following it or not. They may say they may not need to you have accreditation. They say what they want to follow whether you are aligned with this standard or not. So these are the three major entities who can use this standard. Is it a new standard? No. The standard has evolved from 1983. It has gone to several stages. 38, 45, 49, then finally it was 25. And 1999, it has taken the form of ISO IC 17025. For example, OSHA's 18001 till last 10-15 years it was OSHA's 18001. Last year it has converted to ISO 45001. Exactly in a similar way, the first edition has come in 1999, second was in 2005, and it has taken almost 12 years to get to the third edition. And currently we are with the third edition, that is ISO IC 17025 2017. Again, and this, if you have, I'm sure you must have seen this standard. It looks like this. Then, what is the difference in 2017, which is the current revisions? Now, many of the lab, you may say, oh no, we are already accredited by 2005 version. Yes, you are right. Now, as per NABL or other accreditation, the last date was the December 2019, which has been extended, I think, to June 2020 to get your accreditation as per the 2017 version. Now, this new standard, it has been aligned with the ISO 9001 because there was a lot of differences between the clauses and this one. So now they have brought this, they are trying to bring all the standards in a similar fashion, at least generically or structurally they shall be the same. So ISO IC 17025 is the combination of the 9001 structurally and the requirements of the 17000 series. So our standard has a 4 main sections. That is a informative preliminary, which is talking about the what is the forward, introduction, applications and all that one. Then it will go to normative journal. What is the title? What type of scope? Where it can be implemented? Where it cannot be implemented? What are the normative references where in case of any issue you can go there. Then there is normative technicals. Here the actually core comes. If it is a 9001, it is a different. If 17025, it is a different. If 13001 is different, and for the 45001 is different. So here we will go in more details, and then it will come with the informative supplementary. That is the general any attachment or this one. So 17025 has this structure. The 8 clauses. There are 2 annex, Annex A and Annex B, and there is some bibliography. So let us see how is it. Now Parmeshwaran wants to build a house. A beautiful house on the beach. What will you do first? Yes, Parmeshwaran, can you tell me? You want to build a very good house and you want to host a party for us.
Acquire the land. Land.
You will purchase the land, very good.
Yes.
After that?
Then I have to get a plan approval by the government authorities.
Perfect, then?
Okay. Then maybe start with the foundation.
Wow. So he structured the foundations. Now he got the foundations.
Yes.
Now anyone is there who, what he should do next? Anyone? Suryanarayan, Sen, Guga, Ibrahim, Suresh Babu, anybody?
Yeah, your question, please, sir. Sorry, I didn't get your question, please, sir.
Yeah, actually, SP has now, he wants to enjoy his retirement life. And
Yes.
he wants to construct a beautiful bungalow, a villa. So he purchased the land and now he says he got the foundation. So what will be his next step?
So for the foundation, first you need to test the soil there.
Done. He has done. Now he has got the foundation there. After foundation, what should he do?
After foundation, he will cure it for some few days, and he will start the lintel work.
Yeah, so he will get to the structure.
Yes, structure lintel.
Oh, he
Yeah,
will
lintel
do
level.
it.
Yeah. I can
Once
see
he
it.
did the structure, perfect. Now he got the very good structure. What will do next? Now he will get all his utilities: water connection, electricity connection, phone line, drainage system, cooking gas line, and so forth, so many, and so on and so forth. Right? Once he got that, then he will try to see what is the best roof is there. Is this the way? Yes,
Yes.
SP, are you happy with your house?
Yes.
Yeah. So now he got the roof. Now everything is complete. Finally, what will he do?
They
He
will
bring his
furnish. They will furnish
Yeah.
They will start equipment, building up putting up the equipments and the furnishing.
Right. And then?
And then start enjoying it.
Yeah, then he will bring his family, and then he will enjoy his birthday parties and watching the TV and doing a lot of activities.
Yeah.
ISO IC 1705 is nothing but your home. You have clause number 4, which is talking about the foundation of your laboratory. Clause number 5 is talking about the structure, how it will be structured, what should you do. Clause number 6 is talking about all the requirements. What are the utilities you need to bring it over there? What are the services there? 8 is talking about the management system, the roof, who will cover all your processes. And finally, our main business is the 7 is talking about the processes inside the lab.
Yeah.
Is it okay? Any question here?
Yes. Yes.
Perfect. So now this is actually the way in which you can see the whole standard, correlate with yourself. That will help you to implement very nicely, effortlessly. Now let us see what is the structure. It has the main clauses. Though I say there are 8 clauses, when we are going for the assessment, it is the clause number 4 to 8 which will be assessed, and this spells out all the requirements which you have to implement in the lab. 4 is talking about the general requirements. It talks about general. As I told, it is a foundation. Fifth, it is a structural requirement. 6th is a resources requirement. It talks about all the resources, what is required in the lab. We will see what are those resources in the lab. Then 7th is talking about the process requirement. What are the process? You know, the beauty of the new standard, it is giving you the process approach. It was embedded in the old standard, but now it has come out. So you need to understand whole lab as a process, and then you can go for the sub processes also, or you can go to the activity level. We'll see that one in the. And finally, it talks about the management system requirement. Those who are old like me, they are saying, oh, 2005 version was thinking about the technical requirement, management requirement. Where are those? Yes, those are then and there. So if you compare with the old standard, the clause number 4 technical requirement has come in 4, 5, 6, 7, and management requirement has come in the management requirement. But now whole standard requirements are almost there, but however they are aligned in with the 9001 requirements. So now let us go. See what is the process approach. So actually, you know, this standard 2017 has a 2 main differences. One thing is the risk assessment has come profoundly on the front page. The impartiality, though it was embedded, it has come forward, and the process approach has come forward. 2005 was little bit descriptive. You do this one, you shall do, you shall do, you shall do. Now this is little bit prescriptive. You do by your own. You have to define your own risk and see what is going to be there. So what is the process? Process is the interrelated activities which are converting my input to the output with some control and resources. This is a minimum process. Now, when we compare this in the lab, what is my input to the lab? Always it is a sample, or there may be some customer requirement. And what we do, we take this sample or customer requirement, we put it on our laboratory processes, and then we produce a valid result. So objective of any lab or objective of implementation of ISO IC 1705 is to produce a valid result for my customer. Simple, nothing, no more, no less. You are doing purchasing, you are doing training, whatever you do in the lab, end of the day, your objective is to produce valid result. Simple. Do you agree with me? And any other opinion? Yes, anyone?
For the process, this is correct. For the process, this is correct. Yes.
Yeah. So you can take your lab as a process. You can take your lab as a system. It depends how you are taking it, but take it holistically so that you can put, someone was saying now actually it is very difficult. We are finding difficult. No, you define your system, go to the processes. In the processes, go to the activity. If you want to eat the elephant, what will you do? Bite. So divide your system into processes, divide your process into activity, and address that activity. You are done. Now, what is the main benefit of implementing the process? It is giving you a continual improvement. Plan, do, check, and act. Plan your system, plan your process, plan your activity, do it, check it, go and see that what was the issue over there. Go and address, again improvement. So this is continual improvement. Again, to implementation of the ISO 17005, another way is to continually improve your management system, your processes, your activities in the lab. Clear? So now, again, I'm going a little bit in detail. Now we are focusing to the lab. This is my lab. I will get the sample. What will I do? I will convert it into the valid result. Simple. Now, what are those contributions or what are those uncertainty components which are impacting my validity of the result? One thing is my man or woman, machine. What are instrument you are using in the lab? Material, sample, reagent, standards, so many things. Then which method you are using? And finally, the environment in which you are doing. So these are the major 5 components which are impacting the validity of my result. So, and the interaction between them. My man may be good, machine may be good, but my man doesn't know how to operate the machine. So these are the components, interaction between them is important to look into while converting my sample to the results, and that to valid results. And ISO IC 105 is nothing, but it is the way, what shall we do to monitor these 7 components in the right way to develop or to produce the valid results. And if you look at this chart, it is little bit crowded, but this is actually on A3 pages. I can share with the SP and he can share with you. So all the clauses, if you go to this process and you can look at here, man, method, machine, result, all these clauses are linked with everybody.
Fishbone diagram.
You can check it.
Yeah. This is a fishbone diagram, right, sir?
Exactly. Absolutely right. So here you can say what is my input.
Ishika or
Right. You're absolutely right. So whole standard you can see in this way and then address the implementation. You will be in good shape. So whole standard is put it in the process form. Any question till now? If no, then now we'll go clause to clause. We'll not go in the details. We'll just look at the overview of each clause, what is there and what is lab need to. As I told, there are clause number 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, which we need to know the requirements and which has to be implemented in the laboratory to get an accreditation. Someone was saying they are going for A2LA. Yeah, A2LA is one of the best company. So I'm sitting on their accreditation council also. I'm getting a lot of their packages for review and they are very transparent. Their policies are very clear. They are very supportive. So let us go to the clause number 4. Sorry, I'm not advertising the A2LA. There are all organizations are there, but I'm sitting with them. I'm closely working with them. That's why I know them better. General requirement?
Sir, yes. There is one question, sir. Dr. Prashant.
Please.
Is it mandatory for laboratory going for 17025 to get certified for ISO 9001 2015? Or can it be, I think what it means is, can they go directly only for 17025 from Mr. Venkata Subramaniam?
Did you read my presentation? I think you are on my I think 40th slide. Keep your question with you. We'll come back to you. If I could not address, again, just remind me. Okay, please. General requirements. This is, as I told, this is a foundation. So it talks about the impartiality and the confidentiality of your organization. As ethically, you shall maintain the impartiality and the confidentiality. This whole clause is talking about these two clauses only. What is my impartiality? Impartiality is simple way. It is the conducting the activity without any bias. For example, I am testing, SP is owning the lab, and he is also providing me the sample. So such type of any impartiality. Again, impartiality with respect to what? With respect to the validity of result. Again, here, actually just keep it in mind that whenever we are asking any questions, we have to ask the question, is it impacting with the validity of my result? If yes, that is impartiality. For example, I have a lab and I am paying my people the per test, $100 per test. What will he do? He will try to do as much as tests in a day. So he may be biased. Sometimes he may just penicillin or something. So those type of impartialities are there. So these are what is the requirement for the standard? Standard says you should list out all your activities which has impact on the impartiality. Laboratory shall be committed and is responsible to maintain the impartiality of your activities, and you must, again, you shall, standard says you shall conduct the risk assessment on the impartiality and implement all the measuring standards or the preventive measures in order to eliminate or reduce the impartiality. In some cases, it may be very difficult to eliminate. So, but you can reduce it and you can have control. So this is the whole requirement of the standard on the impartiality. Then confidentiality is nothing but protect the data. Because if you are a commercial lab, you are getting the data from so many labs and you are not supposed to make it public. If Sen has some laboratory and he wants to share the data from my lab, then he must take a written permission from me. And that is the confidentiality. Again, this clause is talking 4.3 is talking about the responsibility of lab to maintain the confidentiality. How should you notify the people? How should protect the information? And it is again, this standard is very clear. Not only laboratory permanent employees, but any person who is connected to the lab directly or indirectly and who has the access to information is also abide to follow this standard. He must maintain the confidentiality. So there are some details. We will not go in the details on that one, but these are the overview of that one. Then next structure is the, any question here? Just to quick 1 minute. Then let us go further. Structural requirement. This is a clause number 5, which has a 7 sub clauses: legal entity, management, scope, activities, structure, authority as resources, and finally it is a communication. So this requirement says that a laboratory shall have a legal establishment. You cannot say, okay, Dr. Umre has one lab and he's in his kitchen and he's the testing. No. If there is anything goes wrong, because you are responsible for the report, what you are giving it to customers. And if anything is wrong with the report, it can go in the court and someone can sue you also. So that's why you shall have a legal entity. You shall be connected to some of the organization depending on your national requirement. Suppose you may be having UTS number or whatever it may be. Whatever is your customer number or consumer ID, whatever is there. You shall have a legal identity. And the management is responsible. Identify the management who is responsible for whole activity so that in case of that legal requirement, he can be held responsible for that. Then the laboratory shall define the whole scope. What is your scope for the accreditation? Because you may be having one lab or two lab, or you may be having some mobile lab, or you may be having some the mobile van, or you may be working on the customer. So you need to define the whole scope. What exactly your activities are there? What activity you are going to perform? Then you should define the whole structure of the lab. Who is you may be the independent lab, or you may be the part of the big organization. For example, you go to Reliance. Reliance is a big organization. Lab is not an independent entity. Whereas one of you may be owning your own lab. So you need to define your organization structure. And in case of you are a sub part of the other organization, just try to correlate that one. Where is your top management? And accordingly, you must do the communication of your management system to all your employees. And whenever it is required, it can be percolated to the customer also. That is upon the request. This is all about this clause number 5. We will go to the clause number 6. That is the resource requirement. What are the things I
Excuse me,
need? Yes, please.
This is saying here, sir, this legal entity, can you just little bit explain more in the clause number 5,
Okay.
5.1?
Where do you have your own lab, or do you have? Are you connected with some organization?
Sir, I am from DRDO, GTRE, and we have a small spectrometric oil analysis lab inside our organization.
Exactly. So DRDO is connected to what? Government of India.
Yeah, it's Government of India.
So your organization is coming under the Government of India, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So DRDO is a legal entity under them. So these are the linkages what we have. Because
Okay,
that lab is a part of that DRDO organization located at one place. Am I right?
Yeah.
So you are the part of that big organization, which is a part of the Government of India.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you are done.
Okay, sir. Yeah. Thank you.
This is actually when it comes more important when you have a commercial lab, when you have independent entities. A small lab in my on my backyard. Then I have to get the registered with my government. What are the local government requirement is there? Am I clear?
Yes, sir. It's clear, sir.
Perfect. Thank you. Let us go to the resource requirement. This has a 6 different clauses. 6.1 is talking about the general. 6.2 is talking again. If you look at my process, what we saw this man, method, machine, material. So it's a personal, facilities, equipments, metrological traceability, and talking about the external services what you are getting in the lab. These are the main things what they have been classified in the clause number 4. So general requirements, well, it's just giving listing all these things. Then second is 6.3 talks about all about the personal requirements. He's talking about how should he behave, means what shall be his ethics, impartiality. We have seen in the clause number 4 the ethical, the confidentiality and the impartiality that he has to maintain. What competency is required for that? Someone is a manager, someone is a technician, someone is a janitor. So what is the competency of that particular position to perform his responsibility in the lab? Because those activities are impacting the validity of result. Again, in pharmaceutical lab, even the janitor has its responsibility because he is going in the clean room. In some cement company, it may not. But you need to ensure the competency of the people, and it need to be documented that what should be his competency. And when you hire the person, he is working, you have to ensure that his competency is being monitored some or another way. To ensure again the validity of result, it shall be communicated properly. You shall have all the records and procedures for maintaining the competency of the person to perform his duties. If you have some specific work in your lab, then he has to be authorized. For example, somebody is developing method. For example, this is the DRDO. DRDO mostly they are the research lab. So they may be developing their own method to perform some analysis. So there you shall authorize, okay, X, Y, Z. These 3 persons are authorized to perform the validation. A, B, C, they are authorized to perform the calibration. Or one person can do all the activities. It's not a problem at all, because again, this lab, even the person with lab with one person can also get an accreditation from the accreditation body. So this is talks about all the personal competencies. And you have to just during the hiring, and you need to find out the ways that how this standard is very clear. You know, again, this is risk based. So you need to find out the risk and you have to implement. 6.3 is talking about the facilities and environmental in the lab. Again, it is divided to 5 sub clauses. It talks about the document suitability, what the testing you are doing in the lab, whether that atmosphere or that environment is suitable to perform that or not. For example, I have the lab where I am taking the weight in a milligram. On the adjacent side, there is a lot of vibrations. Can I do it? Probably may not. If you have a commercial lab, you are doing the particulate matter in the diesel fuel. On adjacent, you have the sieve analysis. All the particle from that sieve analysis will come to the particulate matter. Is that suitable? No. Or you are doing the macrobiological analysis. So whatever test you are performing, you shall have a suitable environment to perform the result so that it shall not impact the validity of result. All the requirement, what is requirement, shall be documented. It shall be monitored properly and it shall be recorded. This is the whole requirement over there. All the measuring controls. For example, I have the sieve analysis and the particulate matter. What will I do? I may make it 2 different compartments. So that is my measuring control. So what are the components are there that you have to do in the risk assessment and implement all your control measures. And most importantly, even if you are doing your activity out of your lab, all these requirement has to be maintained, has to be followed. For example, someone is saying he is going to the customer's place. Even you are going to perform your testing or calibration at the customer's place, you have to ensure that all the requirement given by the standard reference method or whatever we are following has to be maintained over there. Regardless whether you are doing in your facility, you are doing in the customer's facility, or you are doing in the, for some example, the environmental analysis. Someone may be going to the river to take a sample, or someone may be going on the road to take the air sample. So in those cases also you have to maintain all those requirements over there. Then let us go to the next. This is a core of the process. Everyone is having equipment in the lab, and for each equipment, again, accreditation is not a 9001. Your accreditation has 2 things. One is the quality management system, which is for your lab, and second thing, you are going in the scope of your accreditation. The scope may be 1 method, or scope may be 50 methods, or scope may be 100 methods or 500 methods. So for each method, you have an equipment. And this requirement is applicable for each equipment available in the lab. You may be having 500 equipments, you may be having 1000 equipments, or you are having 1 equipment. All equipment has to meet all these requirements. What all these requirements are? Shall have access to perform the activities. I will spend a little bit more time on this one so that you can understand, because this is the core of our business. You shall have all the people who are performing the activities shall have access to those equipments. Again, what are the equipments? Equipment is not only the instrument. If you go to the, if you have a copy of the standard with you now, you can go to the clause number 4 and see what is the definition of an equipment. Equipment that is not the piece of instrument. It is all the reagents, standards, chemicals, spares, auxiliaries, supporting equipment, instrument, all are coming under the equipment. For example, you have the viscosity bath and you have the water bath to maintain the temperature of that viscosity bath. So that supplementary equipment is also, instrument is also part of your equipment. So you have to define in that way, and you need to find it out the way. So you shall have access, even it is out of the facility. If you are taking away your wet box, for example, for the calibration of in some other lab, you should also meet all these requirements. You shall have procedure for handling, transporting, storage, calibration, PM of your equipment. They shall verify and confirm the requirement prior placing. When you are getting any equipment from your vendor, you need to get it. We are doing it. I'm sure anyone has a lab and he is purchasing the equipment, definitely is doing. But standard is specifying in this standard. So when you are having some standard, again, one more thing, I will just put it over here. In this standard, you may be a little bit wondered that where is the quality manual? Now this, the old standard was asking for the quality manual, whereas this standard does not ask for the quality manual at all. If you wish, you can have, not a problem at all. Again, there was two terms where one is a technical manager, one is the quality manager. Now those 2 terms has been completely taken out from the standard. You need not to have any quality manager or technical manager assigned over there.
So the response is here, though they don't one point here, sir, If even they don't talk about the laboratory manager, then what is the substitution they have given? What is the solution they have given in this standard?
So again, I did not say laboratory manager. I say quality manager.
Yeah, quality manager. Yes, sir.
Yeah. See, now anyone can do any job. Again, that is why. Again, this whole standard is on the risk based.
Okay.
You have to perform your risk and see what is my requirement. And one clause is there for the competency, right?
Okay.
So any person who is competent to perform that job can perform the job, defined in their roles and responsibility. That is enough.
Okay. Okay.
But initially in the standard, they wanted to have one person assigned as a quality manager, one person as a technical manager. Now those things. Now suppose I have a lab, I am the only owner. I am doing the testing. I am doing everything. From where should I bring the quality manager and technical manager? I cannot. So that is why this standard has come in a prospective way. Initially, it was the descriptive way. They will say, you shall have, you shall have. We will see in the clear. Am I clear?
Yes, clear, sir.
So, yeah,
Clear, sir.
great. So next one is next we talking about whenever you are getting any equipment, it shall competent or capable to perform as per your reference method and meeting the measurement necessity of particular. Suppose for in some test you need to report the result up to 0.1 ppm or 0.01 ppm, but your instrument is capable to do only up to 0.1 ppm. In that case, that is not so. All the instrument when you are getting, you should you have to ensure that it is meeting all the requirement as per the reference method. You should calibrate your instrument as per the requirement of from the, you can have a different requirement from that. It may be reference method, there may be legal requirement, there may be vendors recommendations, or you maybe have your own risk assessment. Depending on, you must calibrate requirement. You shall establish a calibration program for each and every equipment which is impacting the validity of result. Then all the calibration required status has to be labeled. When I go to that, how you want to label or how you want to indicate, it is your own way. But when I go and stand in front of that instrument, I should know as a technician. If I'm a technician in your lab, when I'm standing in that instrument, I should know whether this instrument is valid or not. Is it okay to perform? Suppose some calibration is expired. I should know as a technician. So that is the way you should have some other indication that how a technician who is standing in front of the instrument to perform the test is aware of the status of the instrument. When any instrument, when it is out of question, it should be taken out of service. You should initiate a non-conformance, why it was out of safety, how many result has gone invalid, those type of things. You must investigation for all. Then all the equipments must have a intermediate check as per your risk assessment, because you may be having one equipment which is calibration frequency is once in a year. Perfectly okay. But how would you ensure that these equipment for 1 year is okay or not? For that, you shall have some or another way of intermediate check to ensure, yes, that instrument is okay to perform the test. Then when there is a correction factor, in some cases thermometers are there, we have to correction, or pressure gauges are there. For example, you are doing the RVP. In RVP, you have to add your correction. Someone is talking about the engine here. He has to take the pressure and add that correction factor over there. So all those factors, corrections factor has to be available, shall be communicated, shall be documented, so that it can be implemented in a proper way. So all the equipment, when you are calibrating, what are the best way to prevent the unintended use? For example, actually old equipment does not have anything, but now all the modern equipment has a different layer of the securities. A technician can go only to perform the test, whether my chemist or scientist can go to calibrate the instrument. So, the instrument maintenance guy can go only the maintenance feature of the instrument. In some cases, it is not possible. But that's why they are saying the practicable measures to prevent an unintended adjustment. For example, you have a simple instrument as a dew point you are taking. So, you know, there is a small hole, you can change the setting. So when you calibrate, put a label on that, sign it. If someone is steering, it means it is unintentionally handled. So those type of what are practical way you have to do it. Now, instrument history has to be retained for commissioning report, instrument manual, who is competent to perform the test, how to handle, what is the calibration frequency, when was the class calibration, when is my next calibration, when PM was done, what was the troubleshooting. All this history has to be maintained. How do you maintain the history? It is up to you. You can have a hard copies or you can have a limbs. Up to you. It is perfectly left to you. They are not saying how to do. They say all the history has to be maintained over there. For example, I got a calibration, I got a customer complaint after 1 year for one equipment. On that day, your analysis was not up to the mark. Then what you will do, you will go to investigation. At that time, you will come to know, oh, on that instrument that my calibration was expired. So for that purpose, all the history which is impacting the validity of results has to be there. Any question on this one?
Yes, sir.
Yes, please.
Sir, Suresh Babu here.
Yeah, please.
Sir, my question is on clause 6.4.8 calibration. The system, the equipment calibration is done by the OEM himself through AMC.
Okay.
Now by the assessing authority, there is a criticism that OEM calibrating his own system, he will say, yes, everything is all right. But you should have an independent body and get it calibrated. So how do you tackle this, sir?
Very good question. Because what is coming here, it is impartiality, right?
Yes, sir.
Because I am saying my baby is very good.
Yeah.
So now, see, we will come to the, just hold for a second your question. Yeah, just hold it. Let me complete the 6.5. I think you people are reading. SP, did you share my presentation to everybody? Because everyone is jumping to the next slide. I doubt that everyone read my question. Read my slide. Yes, Babu?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, did you read my presentation? Because I am seeing someone is jumping to my the 50th slides, or you have the dream slide. Oh, Dr. Humre is going to present. These are the slides over there. Just I'm joking. Okay. So let me complete the next, and then we'll come to your question. That's very good questions, and most of the things it is coming. Now, when I have the calibration, all the results, 6.5 is talking about the metrological traceability. So how should it be maintained and why it should be maintained? Because you have your own lab and that has to be connected by some or another way to the SI unit or National Metrological Instrument, what are NMI. In our case, I think it is NPL India or NPL UK, or you can NIST. Whatever traceability is there, it has to be connected to the SI unit. How can I do? Because if you have, you can get with your calibration. It has to be taken care by someone who has a standard which is traceable to the NIST or traceable to the National Metrological Institute in your country or any international lab, which is directly have traceability to the SI. So one way you are going up, at the same time your uncertainty is going down. Suppose you have weight box in NPL India, the uncertainty is very, very, very less, very high. Whereas when you come to your lab, it may be uncertainty is very high. So these are metrological traceability. What are the requirements of this one? You have to establish and maintain the metrological traceability for all your calibrations. Indirectly, it is a result. Then it shall be traceable to SI unit. How? You can go to the calibration lab lab can go to the NPL can go to the NIST. These are the unbroken documented chain of traceability has to be maintained. And when there is a problem, you cannot maintain the traceability. There are some cases, mostly DRDO may be facing this problem. In that case, if there is nothing available, then you can have your own. For example, if someone is doing PONA in your hydrocarbon lab, is there any standard, certified standard? Probably no. The manufacturer is given it to you. But he shall have a complete documented way that how he is deriving that standard so that whatever the result are valid. Why it is required? Because when you are getting the ISO 17025 accreditation, your results are valid across the globe to all the countries who has signed the ISO IEC 17025 agreement. If you are doing the testing in India and you are sending the material in Germany, those results will be valid. So that is why the traceability is required. Traceability is another subject. Probably sometime we can have a separate session on metrological traceability itself. Now, come back to the Suresh Babu's question. Suresh Babu saying that he has some criticism from the assessment body that from here you are doing the, you are asking the manufacturers, yes, he can do your calibration. There is no question at all. As long as he can produce the traceability certificate, which is traceable to SI unit. No question at all. Am I clear, Suresh Babu here?
Yes, sir. Getting it, sir.
Yeah. Did he provide any traceability certificate, or he's saying, yes, this baby is good?
No,
What did he provide?
He's providing
Traceability.
traceability.
And traceability to what?
Traceability to his company standards what they are maintaining.
Not acceptable.
Okay.
It has to be traceable to the SI unit.
Yes,
If,
sir.
for example, you may be having a metron. Do you have metron equipment in your lab?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, fine. Let us take that example. You are your titrator, you are calibrating, you cannot calibrate. You ask your vendor to come and calibrate it. Perfectly okay. What he will calibrate? He will try to see the millivolts. He will try to see the voltage, the volume of your burette, right? Now, when he is doing the millivolt, the instrument equipment he is using to calibrate your millivolt or correct or verify your equipment. In that case, you need to see the equipment what he has used. Is it traceable or not? Because he is not competent to calibrate his equipment. He must have calibrated it from the one of the calibration lab which is available in India, which is accredited by the NABL maybe, or A2LA, or IAS, or DAC, or anyone else. So you need to see, you have to ask him, when you provide me the calibration certificate, your calibration certificate has to be accompanied with the traceability certificate, or you have to mention that, okay, this instrument is calibrated by this lab, which is ISO 17005 calibration lab. That is perfectly okay.
Okay.
Okay. Any other question on this?
Sir, I have just one question on it.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I am saying here, me and Suresh work together. Like this, whatever the lab we are talking about, this all analysis lab. So whatever we are having an AMC with the OEM. So the AMC job is that he comes and see all the subsystems of this main equipment is performing well, and then he gives us standards which is valid for a period of 1 year and which is traceable to the international standards. And with that standard samples, he do a calibration of the equipment and then give us that whether the calibration value is as per whatever has been intended. So is this acceptable?
See, again, let me clarify. What is the international standard? I don't know.
Yeah,
International standard maybe from the Bangladesh, also you are getting, getting something from Bangladesh.
UK. It is a Petrolabs company. It is from UK. So what he does is that whatever the oil, what he uses the standard oil for calibrating that, it is traceable to that. There is a unique number which is traceable to that international standard, which conforms to ASTM D6595 standards.
Right.
Not from
now, my question is that, hey, even you can get it from Bangladesh, as long as it is traceable, that is perfectly okay for me. I don't want to say that Bangladesh is not a good country. It's a very good country. They are also producing good standards.
Yeah.
Even if it is coming from UK, I will not go on the name of UK or US. I will see the standard. I will get their certificate. I will see whether this is traceable to SI or not. The standard when he has prepared, whether that lab is either ISO 17025 accredited, or the material what he has used, or the equipment what he has used to perform the standard is traceable to SI or not.
Okay.
So whenever you get the certificate, you need to see those reference number. Sometimes they will write any reference number, even if it is UK. It doesn't mean that they are the good best. For me, irrespective of the country, I will see the traceability to SI unit.
Okay, sir.
Clear?
Yeah, sir.
Any other question?
No, sir. Thank you.
Perfect. So let us go to the next one. Next is talking about the externally provided. What is time over here? Let me take you 2 minutes here. Just we do one good experiment so that you will recall everything over there. Just okay. Please close your eyes. All of you, just if you don't close, you will not go to the journey. Close your eyes. Take a normal breathe in and breathe out. Now let us start the journey to your workplace. It may be your lab, or if you don't have the lab, you can go to the lab wherever you are
I
visiting.
think
Just go there, enter into the main lab, go to close to your favorite equipment in that lab. It may be flashpoint, distillation, cloud point, any one of titration. Be there, stand in front of the lab, look at the whole instrument, and see that all these 13 requirements were admitting. Is it producing the right result? Is it labeled? Does it have a calibration frequency? Is it calibrated and indicated on the instrument? Does it have a PM frequency? Is the PM conducted? Does this instrument have a instrument ID? Is it placed in the right environment? Do have all the records there? Where it is stored? Go to that cupboard. It may be in the limbs, go to the limbs. Or it may be at some cupboard, go to that cupboard. Check it out. How many records are there? Are they accessible? Are they in good shape? And bring that whole history in your mind and come out of the lab and sit on the seat where you are sitting now. Take another breath in and breathe out, and you can open your eyes now. Did you get the journey? Have you seen your instrument? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
How was it? Was the instrument good shape or no?
Good shape.
Good shape.
Good shape? Very good. So you are meeting the requirement. Isn't it? So now whatever gaps you find it over here, just go and do that one.
Yes.
Next class is going to be 6.6. That is about talking about externally provided product and service. What is external product? It is the thing that purchase. The new name is there. You are either purchasing the services or you are purchasing the material. So I like that someone has say, Suresh Babu was saying he has the contract. It means you are purchasing the services from them, or you may be purchasing the standard from UK lab. So that is the purchase of the material. So there are two types of purchases. One is services and one is the material. So in that case, these are the three requirements you have to meet, that you are meeting all these requirements. One is the suitability. Whatever product or services either you are providing either for you or you are giving it to your customer, this is applicable for both of the requirements. So that product or services has to be suitable to perform the valid testing or valid calibration to produce the valid result or valid calibration. All the procedure, you must have a procedure. It is the complete procedure from your purchase requisition to the inspection of material and usage in the lab. And you have to maintain the record. Suppose, for example, now this Babu was saying that he is doing the calibration for OEM. I will go and see his purchase requisition, what he has asked for in the requisition. Then, is it communicated to the customer? Yes. Is it received? When I received, is it meeting the requirement as your purchase order or not? If it is then, it is inspected. If it is not meeting, is it rejected or not? When then is the communication. When I am having the external, then all the external provider or those vendors, they are validated or not. Are we doing some performance parameter or for them or not? Do we have some KPI for that? So all those things has to be mentioned in this clause. So Babu's question is here. Now when I go for the traceability, I will see whether in your PR, did you mention that all the calibration you are performing in the lab has to be traceable to the SI unit and shall meet all the requirement of ISO IC 17005. If you are writing this one, it is perfectly for your analysis. Same thing is for material also. When you are purchasing some material, actually here, when you are purchasing some material, you have to write, okay, this standard has to be traceable to SI unit. So if you are writing those things, that is the suitability procedures and communication. It has to be communicated to your customers in a proper way. So this is the whole is talking about the 6.6 about the purchasing. Then we'll go to the process 7, line. Let us come back to the process now. Actually, we have seen the clause number 4, 5, 6, and now we'll go to the 7. 7 is the exactly the processes what we are working in the lab. And this 7 is very, very important. You have to go in very details because it is the, and you have to implement all these requirements for each method which is under the scope. So more work has to be done in the clause number 7. Where the system in the system requirements, that is actually a little bit, that is an overview. But when you go to the process, there are more criticalities are over here. So this clause has 11 different sub clauses, 7.1 to 7.11. The one is talking about your request, tenders, then other talking about the selection of the method. If you are involved in the sampling, the 7.3 is very, very important for you. 7.4 is talking about how are you going to handle all these samples which are getting in the sample. Actually, in the standard is known as the test atom or calibration atom. How are you going to handle? How are you going to handle a technical record, measurement uncertainty? There is talking about the validity of the result, because again, the main objective is to produce the valid results. So how the lab is going to, what is their policy to ensure the validity of results? Then it's talking about the reporting results. Then how do you handle the complaint? 7.10 is talking about the non-conforming of work, and 7.11 is talking about the information management. Either it is manual or it is through the LIMS. So this whole clause number 7 is very important. You have to go in the thorough of this one, because most of your NCR or comments from the assessor comes from this clause only. So let us go for one. How are you going to do the request? What is the request tender? Again, there are 8 sub clauses here. It is talking about the procedure. How are you going to handle the review or request? You may be having a, now actually there are 2 things. One, Babu has a commercial lab, whereas one gentleman, sorry, I forget the name, he's from the DRDO. DRDO is having his internal customers, whereas the commercial lab has external customers. So internal lab may be having a simple process of the handling the request from the customer, whereas the commercial has a very complicated. So you have to do your risk assessment, but this standard requires you shall have a procedure that how are you going to handle the requests or the contracts. How are you using the appropriate method which is required for that to perform the testing or that perform the calibration? It is provided by you, provided by legal entity, provided in the contract, or provided by the customers, or no one has provided. Are you going to use an appropriate method? If they are given some inappropriate, no, use this method. You have to say, sorry, I cannot use this method for this particular testing or calibration. You should be very clear on that. Now 7.1.3 is a new addition of the decision rule in this standard. This is little bit complicated subject. It requires almost one full day to discuss on the decision rule. But just here I'm telling that if you are producing any report or result to your customer confirming with some of the specification, in that case you have to implement the decision rule. It shall be clearly defined in your contract and it shall be clearly reflected in your report. What is the decision rule? Decision is nothing but how are you using your uncertainty while confirming your result with the specification. It requires a long discussion. If time permits, at the end of this, if someone is interested, I can explain maybe in a few minutes.
You can, Dr.
Yeah, sure.
Sir, one question came, sir. Should we have SOPs for each equipment and test method?
What do you think? It is, again, you have to go to the standard. If you compare the old standard, still we are in the mental setup is with the old standard. Older standard that you shall have. Here, you have to perform the risk. Do you think if I do not have this document, my people are going to deviate from the testing? If the answer is yes, you shall have. If answer is no, you need not to have. Suppose, for example, I am the one person in my lab. I know English. I know how to comprehend the English. I can have a ASTM with me, or IP with me, or DIN with me. I can just read from the method and perform the testing. In that case, do I need? I may not need. But suppose you have 100 technicians in the lab, some are diploma holder, they cannot comprehend the whole standard, because if you go to engine that 27,000 and that one that is having a 50 pages ASTM standard. Can my technician read that one? No. So what should is recommended is that my risk is that he cannot read that standard. So let me have a tabletop SOP for that standard. So it is again based on your risk. You have to take. If you say no, actually it doesn't make a difference. What I can directly read from my reference standard. Perfectly, you need not to have a SOP. Am I answering your question?
Mr. Venkat
Yes.
Subramaniam. Yeah, I think.
Did I answer your question?
Mr. Venkat has to please reply.
Yes.
He says yes.
Perfectly. And we'll discuss that when we come, I think probably in one of the section it is coming also. Then when you are deviating from any contract with the customers, you shall have a communication with those, whatever condition. If you are amending anything, how shall you communicate to your customer? How shall you get an agreement? And finally, you shall have record for all your contract. So again, there is a say that is you shall have a record from your cradle to grave. So when your PR starts to the payment, everything you shall have the complete cycle over there. Is that clear? Then we'll go to the next clause, that is selection of the method. What type of method you shall have? There may be a 3-4 different type of requirements. Either you can have a contractual agreement, that method, or there may be legal requirement, or there may be some regulatory requirements, or referred by some of the standards. So you may have the reference method, which is internationally renowned method like ASTM, IP, DIN, IS. These are the different methods. Or you may be having your in-house methods. So you have to verify all those standard methods which you are implementing in the lab to perform the test or calibration. These are the standard methods. But if that method is mostly in the DRDO or in the pharma, you have your in-house method, perfectly okay. You need to perform the validation of that method and then you can get an accreditation. So there are two different words. One is a verification, one is a validation. So you need to know the difference between two. If the reference method is internationally renowned, like ASTM, you need not to validate the method at all until unless you are going out of the scope of the method. However, if you have an in-house method, you need to validate. So 7.2 is talking about all this. If you go in the description, you can read it more on that. Sampling. This is actually, if your lab is doing only sampling, then also you can get an accreditation of the ISO 17005. Here you have to decide whether you are involved in the sampling or not. If you are involved in the sampling, you have to meet all these requirements. Otherwise, you can simply say, I am receiving the sample from my customer and I am responsible as on received. However, if you are responsible sample, then in that case, you shall have a sampling plan, what type of method you are doing, who is competent or not, what type of methods I am going to use for the sampling. And you should have a very clear method and procedure for that one. And then you shall have a record that who has sampled, when it had sampled, where it has sampled, what has happened, what was my sampling quantity or my sampling procedure. All this is required if you are sampling to get it in the lab. If your customer is bringing to you, you are clear on this thing. Clear? Any question over here? Because this is a little bit new requirement.
Sir, Suresh here again.
Yeah.
Sir, this 7.3.1 sampling, when we evolve our own sampling method, so how it will be certified that yes, this sampling method is right for this test?
So you are evolving that method based on some facts, not from your mind.
Okay.
It is a factual decision, and this is in agreement with your customer. As long as you are doing on some facts, not from your brainchild.
Okay.
And you are in agreement with your customer, and it is producing the right result. That perfectly okay. For example, you are going to the coal, and you are taking the sample of the coal, and you are going to the gold mine, and you are taking the sample.
Yes, sir.
So there will be definitely there will be a difference between these two.
Yes, sir.
So you have to do the risk assessment. You have to take all those uncertainty contributors. What may impact my home? What is the purpose of you shall get the homogeneous sample, representative sample, which can be tested.
Okay.
For example, you are doing the orange testing for some pesticides. What you are going to test? Are you going from the pile? Or you are going to have the sub part? Or you are going to 10 oranges and mix it together?
Specific.
So depending on the risk, you have to do that one. Is it clear?
Right, sir.
Perfect. Then next go how to handle the calibration standard or the test or calibration atom. What is that? It is nothing but the sample what you are receiving. But actually here it is said that the test or calibration atom. Either you are getting the balance for calibration in your lab or weight box in the calibration in the lab, or you are getting some sample for the testing. In that case, you have to meet all these 7.4.1 to 7.44 requirements for your that sample. Again, it is from your cradle to grave. How are you going to receive the sample? Are you going to take a sample? How are you going to, how will you log it? Who will test it? How shall it go? Its whole life cycle. Are you going to subgroup it? You have one sample, no, I will divide it into two groups, or are you going to grind that sample? And all these things you need to make a record over there. So you have to see that sample end of the day, are you going to dispose it or are you going to retain it? It depends on your customer's requirement and agreement with your customer. You may dispose, you may retain for 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, whatever your agreement is over there. But at the end of the day, you shall be very clear, documented procedure and record for all your samples, or that is test atom and calibration atom receiving in your lab from his cradle to the grave. Procedure and the record also. In some cases, if there is a specific requirement of temperature, humidity for retaining those samples, that also you have to maintain, you have to monitor and ensure that this is being taken care of properly. So these are the all requirement on the sample handling. Next one is about technical records. Technical record is nothing, but these are the original observations during the analysis. For example, I am doing the titration in the lab. So what normality was there for my standard? What was the volume? What weight I have taken? These are the original observation has to be maintained. That is our original observation in the lab. These are known as the technical records.
So what we call raw data is applicable to this?
Exactly. You can call raw data, take original observations, whatever you say.
Okay.
Yeah, what you are saying is one other term. Actually, there are different terminologies are across the globe. Somebody is going original observation, somebody is throwing over raw data, perfectly okay. But whatever you are saying, it has to meet these two requirements. Number one, what is the content of that technical record? 7.5.1. And this is again for each observation. If you are doing 100 tests, for 100 tests has to have this data with you. Then if there is any issue with the correction, what should you do in case of correction? Now, along with the LIMS, now you may be transferring all your data directly from instrument to the LIMS. Perfectly okay. That is your original observation. Your chromatogram shall be there in your LIMS. You should be able to retrieve that data whenever it is required. Why this data is required? Because if there is a customer complaint or there is some non-conformity, suppose for example you have participated in the PT, that is proficiency testing. After 3 months you get a result, oh it was outlier. Then you need to go and see that who has done, when it has done. Oh no, on that day it was heavily raining. That's why it was humid and moist. So that is why that is the purpose of technical record. You can have whether a hard copy or then here the 7.5.2 is talking about the in case of amendment in the original data, what shall we do over there? Who has done? Why it has done? What was the original record and what is the altered record? So all these things has to be maintained in the 7.5.5. Then next one is the measurement intensity. This is a very big subject again, but as per this one, clause number has this clause has though uncertainty is a big subject, but as per this the standard number thing is that all the measurement uncertainty contributor has to be included while calculating uncertainty. Each lab performing test or calibration shall estimate their uncertainty for all the test and calibration being performed. Here, more actually the testing labs a little bit on light sense, but calibration lab has to be very, very clear on their calibration or uncertainty, because that uncertainty is percolating in your testing when you are calculating your uncertainty. So this is very simple requirement is that all the test or calibration you are performing, you shall estimate your uncertainty, measurement uncertainty, and all the uncertainty contributor has to be included over there. Whether to report or not, we will see in the next chapter. Ensuring the validity. Now again, now here our main purpose is to produce the valid result. Now you have to have a very clear-cut guideline how I am going to ensure the validity of result. This is the list you can see from A to K. There are different ways they have given. How can you can have your calibration, you can have your validation, you can have PT sample, inter-laboratory testing, you can take a blind sample, you can repeat the analysis. There are so many ways. But requirement was one or other way you have to validate your result. You can use one, you can use more, depending again on the risk. In some cases, you need to do, if I go to the pharmaceutical, if I am doing the assay for the potency, which each batch I have to do the validation, 3 injection before, 3 injection after, and result had to be sandwiched. If I'm going to the coal mine, probably I don't need it. Once in a month is okay. So depending on the risk and criticality and the importance of your result, for example, I'm doing the blood analysis for something very critical disease. In that case, my verification has to be with each test. So depending on the criticality, you have to do your risk assessment, and depending on that facts, you need to implement some or another way to validate your result. Then 7.8 is talking about the our product.
Sir, just 1 minute, sir. Sir, as you
You
mentioned
can call me
earlier, I'm
Prashant.
saying here.
I feel very
as you-
awkward when you call me sir.
Yeah. Okay, okay, Prashant. As you mentioned earlier, that once if you are conforming to an international standard, ASTM like a standard, we need not do the validity. So whether 7.6 tells that 7.7 tells that even though we are complying to international standard, we have to follow the validity, go for the validation of the process.
Where I think you are listening my things very keenly. It looks like.
Yeah,
See,
sir.
there are two things. There I was talking about the validation of the method
Okay.
and verification of the method.
Okay.
Here I am talking about the validity of the result.
Okay.
Two different things. Are you getting me?
Yeah, yeah, got
With me?
it, sir. Yeah.
When you are implementing method, you have to validate the method whether I am performing the test as per this method or not.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that you are producing the right result. Now you have to validate that result whether they are right
Okay.
or not.
Okay.
How?
Sir,
For example, if you are doing the engine, now you are doing the engine testing, right?
yeah.
Ron and Mon. How can you validate? There are different companies are there who are doing the proficiency testing. One is the ASTM is doing, Energy Institute from UK, then from Netherlands, the IAS is there. These are doing the proficiency testing. So you are getting the sample from there. You are testing. Your Z-score is less than 2. What does it mean? You are validating your result, right?
Okay. Okay, sir. Got
This
it.
is one way. Another way, what you do, you are preparing some mixture over there, right? From toluene and all those things. And you are keeping, okay, 98, 91 different mixtures as per the STM. When you are running that one and you are getting the right value, what does it mean? You are validating your result.
Okay.
Okay? Great.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Any other question?
No, sir. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, now this is our product. It is talking about result. So there are different requirements over. We will not go into the details. One is talking about the general requirements. How should it look like? What should be the content of that one? Your name, who is authorizing the result? It should be clear, concise, as per the requirement. Then common requirement shall also be there. There's okay, the address of the customer, address of the viewer, so that when your result is going in the market, I should be able to see that who has done this analysis, who has authorized that one. Suresh Babu is giving the Ron and Mon. I brought, he says the gasoline is 91. His Ron is 91. And when I got it is 87. So I need to catch the Suresh Babu. Oh, Babu, what did you do? Oh, no, Parvesharan has told me to just release this batch. I'm sorry, Babu, for picking you up. So these are some general requirements. Then there are some 7.8.3 is talking about the test report. How your test, what are the requirement of the, because there are two different reports are there. One is a test report, one is a calibration certificate. If you are a testing lab, you will produce the test report. When you are a calibration lab, you will develop the calibration certificate or calibration report, whatever you say. So this both has a different requirements. So you have to go in the very details of these clauses and see that what are the requirements, and you have to see one by one, I am meeting the requirement always. For example, test report need not to have an uncertainty. If customer requires, then only. But calibration certificate by default, he has to mention the uncertainty and the traceability. If it is not, it is incomplete report. Then if you are doing the sampling, 7.8.5 is talking about the sampling. If you are doing the sampling, you should meet all the requirement. Now 7.8.6 has very clearly come about the conformity. Do you remember I talked about the decision rule? That is here. If you are giving the statement of conformity, in that case, you have to clearly mention that what decision rule you have adopted over here, how the uncertainty has been implemented in order to give the conformity. And if your lab is, again, they're doing an interpretation of them, say, oh no, this material is okay to go ahead with this, specifically in the DRDO. They are getting a lot of polymer samples and this and that sample, and they saying, okay, this is applicable for this particular purpose. In that case, you shall have different requirements. And finally, if you are making any amendment in the report, that has to go as per 7.8.8. So these are very descriptive. You can just go to the standard, is very good to go. 7.9 is talking about the customer complaint, very important factor. Here you should have a very clear-cut policy of your organization. How are you going to handle the customer complaint? It is not the customer complaint. It is anyone who is giving associated with your activities. Even it may be your employee also. So how are you going to get the customer complaint? How are you going to address? How is going to investigate? How are you going to implement the correction and corrective actions? How are you going to communicate with the customers? How are you going to implement all the preventive measures in order to not the recurrence? All these things has to be clearly mentioned in this clause. You should become on very clear on this. Then this is non-conformity of the work. What is non-conformity of work? You have your own policies. You have your standard policies. You have your customer policies. You have your accreditation policies. If anyone is deviating from that one, that is a non-conformance. And you have to handle it completely. For example, in Babu's case, he is doing the RON in his lab. Someone is supposed to take the 100 ml of sample. Another guy has taken 110 or 90, or he's supposed to use the A class glassware. He's not using it. That is non-conformance. If you got the PT sample, which is outlier, that is your non-conformity. So any non-conformity which is deviation from your policies or a standard or from the work instruction or from the reference standard or from the accreditation agency's policy, these are known as the non-conforming work. And that has to be addressed as per the clause number 7.10. What does it say? You shall have a procedure, you shall have a record, and you should do all the corrective action for that non-conformance. These are the three different requirements are there under the 7.10. And this is the most critical area when assessor comes and looking in, because he will take all the threads from here only. If I am assessor, I will just go to your non-conformance of last year and I can see how your lab is working. Then last 7.11 is talking about the how to maintain the information. That information may be, but this specifically this cause is more focused on the utilization of the LIMS in your lab. So most of the lab, they are using LIMS now. So in that case, you shall have access to that one. All the features shall be validated. It shall be protected. It shall be protected from the unauthorized access, or it shall be safeguarded from any tampering or loss or cyber security. All these taken, you have to describe that how are you going to have, what are your policies and control measures over there. And then we are another is that if some lab is very small, I cannot have my own server. Fine, you can take it from external services, but in that case, again, all this requirement has to be mentored there. All things has to be documented. And when you are transferring any data to the LIMS, it shall be validated again. For example, titration. For example, someone is doing a titration and he is using the calculation in the LIMS. You are just adding the weight and the volume and it is being calculated. So whether it is right or not, you have to do the validations of that. Or you are transferring the data directly from the instrument. In that case, you need to validate all the data over here. About 7.8. Now let us go to the management. Management system requirement. It is applicable to the whole quality management. Till now, what we have discussed, that was specific to your methods, and few are coming to the whole management. But these are the things which are talking about the management systems. Even actually, you can have one method in your accreditation scope. That is perfectly okay, and you have all the methods. So generally, what policy they are doing, most of the lab, they take the 5 methods, they get the accreditation. Now you are in a good shape, and then keep on adding the method for another 4-5 years to complete another 400-500-600 methods. It is perfectly okay. So these are the requirements what we are talking about, the management requirement. Now, when we come to have in different sub clauses, one is talking about the option, management documentation, management control of record, then the risk assessment, then talking about improvement, corrective action, internal audit, and management review. These are the different area it has been covered. Now someone has asked the question that I am coming to that slide. Now they have given the two options to you. This standard is very clear. Till now it was little bit hazy over there. This standard is very clear now. If your lab is certified as per 9001, you need not to follow from 8.1 to 8.2 to 8.8. You are done. Principally, you are following all the management requirement. If you are not, in that case, you have to follow all these requirement of this clause 8.2 to 8.8. So if you are ISO 17025 accredited, you are indirectly following the principles of 9001. However, other way around is not true. So now come to the question. Someone has asked me a question. I forgot the name. I'm sorry for that. Can you come to the question?
I
It
think
was
it was
related to 9001.
Mr. Suryan.
Suryan.
Mr. Venkat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So that's why you are spy. Huh? You are looking to my slides through some microscope. I don't know. You got a good dream. The intuition is there. Very nice. So here it is very clear. If your organization is 9001, just forget about whole this clause because you are meeting all the requirement over there. But if you are not, then you have to meet the requirement over here. Now here again 8.2, we'll just go through it. Your system and document. Your system, that is a quality management system, shall meet all these requirements from 8.2.1 to 8.2.5. You shall have established management system. What is the structure of whole your system? What are your policies? How your management is going to committed to the maintain, to implement, establish, implement, maintain, and improve your quality management system. How all these things, all your different processes are linked together. Initially, we had a quality manual, which is linking everything together. Now they says you need not have a quality manual, but you shall have some or another way that how all your documents, processes, records are linked together, interlocked and interlinked with each other. And then how all the laboratory personnel can get an access for all the required documents appropriate to his duties. Everyone need not to have the access to all the documents, whereas whatever he is performing, for example, calibration process, my chemist may be having, but my technician, he may be access only the test procedures. So you shall have a complete defined structure over there for your quality system documentations. Then next is document control. All the documents are there. 8.3 is talking about all the document, which type of document you should control. It may be internal, it may be external. So both the documents you have to control. And how to control? If it is internal document, it shall be approved, it shall be updated periodically, it shall be protected, it shall be accessible, and prevented from on any unintended use or getting degraded by some other way. So this talks about all, and this clause is applicable for all your documents across the standard. It is applicable to if document. I will go to your purchase order. That is my document. So I will go and see. But that shall meet all these requirements. If you are having a testing procedure, that is document. I will go to that clause document. I will see whether it is meeting all the requirements. So this clause is applicable for all the documents what you are maintaining in your lab. Then record control is almost same. Record and documents, there is a little bit differences there. Both are almost on the same verge. Again, they have the two required what to retain, which record has to be written. Now, in the old standard, they used to say, retain this, retain this, retain this, retain this. Now, this standard does not talk anything about it. Those who know the 2005 version, they said, you shall have a procedure for the record control. Now that procedure has gone. You need not have a procedure. If you wish, you can, depending on the risk. If you have 100 people and you say, oh, I don't want to have a control. I don't have a procedure. Can all 100 people on the same platform? Are they harmonized with your policy? If yes, then you need not to. Otherwise, you shall have. Then all the result, what to retain, which records are good, which are then all the controls, they shall be protected, backup, archival, all these things has been given in the 8.4. 8.5 is talking about the risk and opportunity. Now keep your pencil and pen and paper with you. We'll do a small exercise over here. Because this is a new requirement in this standard and it has to be done in a very precise way. We are doing, but now it needs to be documented. What is a risk? effect of any uncertainty on your objectives. For example, what is my objective? To produce the valid result. What is my uncertainty? My man, method, machine, material. They are my uncertainty. So you have to identify how these components are impacting on my objectives, and that you have to identify here. Then opportunities, there may be opportunity. Now, for example, you are entering all the data in the manually in the limbs, or those does not have, they are reporting manually. So there in the improvement is what? Opportunity improvement. They can get a limbs so that all data can be in the right way. Those who have limbs, but they are loading the data manually, they can have an opportunity to integrate or interface the instrument with your limbs. That may be another opportunity. Or now you have, for example, you are doing a density by a hydrometer. Now you want to get the automated viscosity instrument. So these are the opportunity improvement to improve the reliability of data and validity of the data or the performance of your lab. That is the opportunity. Those you need to identify. Then addressing the risk could mean the new one. So now one example we'll take it here. And then everyone will do one exercise. So keep your pen and pencil with you, paper with you. Now I will explain one example and we will take one more. My objective is to produce the valid result. Now, what are the sources which may impact the validity of the result? There may be 5 different ways. My person, my machine, my material, my method, these are the uncertainty component which may have some risk to play with my validity of the result. So then in order to prevent this risk, what can I do? For example, I have a technician who is performing the test. What can I do? I can train him. I can monitor his competency by some or other way. I will provide the training to him, or I will do some PT testing or inter-laboratory testing or blind sample, some other way. So I will ensure that he is competent to perform that testing or calibration. So this is the risk. These are the preventive measures. Now machine, it is producing the data. So the machine may not be calibrated properly, or there may not be intermediate check, or there may not be PM. What he was saying that he has extended the material. He has extended the validity of that master, but it was not right because that was the gas sample. Because he has done for the weight box, that's why he has done also for the gases. So those type of risks you have to identify and document. So I would request here now, everyone, how many are here? Here we have 12 people, or how many participants? Around 16. So each one of you take one item in your lab. For example, you can take the confidentiality and then write what are the sources for the risk. Am I clear with everybody?
Sir, confidentiality means what, sir? Confidentiality, just
confidentiality is protect the information
okay.
of the customer and the organization.
Fine.
You can take the impartiality. Impartiality is the bias. One can take the sampling as a process. One can take as a calibration as a process. One can take the training as a process. One can take a sample handling as a process. One can take the retention of the sample as a process. And write down what are the source of the risk. Write down one process which you want to do risk assessment. Am I audible to everybody?
Yes.
You can respond in your here. You can probably help them to.
Yes.
So write down one process under the potential risk to.
Yes.
Then write down all the sources
Yes.
which may contribute a risk to that process.
And this
You
can
can
be
have
done
man,
under those
method,
4
material,
headings.
machine.
Yes,
Huh?
under those four headings we can think of.
Yeah.
For example,
You can-
confidentiality, we may
In
have
machine.
a person who is kind of selling all the information or something like that.
Yeah.
It could be a risk. If we don't know the background of that person, like that person may be taking that information and selling it. So
Right.
loss of confidentiality.
So everyone shall take one process and just write down all the sources of risk there. List it out. What do you think? If you are done, just let me know so we can go ahead.
Once you are done, I request all participants to say in chat that they are done.
Yeah.
And the other thing, as Sir SP has requested, I have put that one PDF also in the thing for download, I guess, for everybody. That,
Oh, this is a very good article actually.
Yeah.
Article.
Yeah.
Article
Lab
which,
drawing.
yeah.
Excellent model.
And once you are done with the risk, now you say, this is my risk. How am I going to address it? What are the preventive measures I can put it? For example, confidentiality, what you can do, you can have an agreement with that guy. If you are leaking any business information in the market, there will be a certain guideline how to handle those things. Or if you are say confidentiality, impartiality, you can have a rule that, okay, no, I will maintain the integrity across my customer domain. I will not be biased. If you have calibration, then you can say my preventive measures is my calibration program, is my testability, is the competent person. And then these are the preventive measures. Sampling, their contribution is that improper sampling, incompetent person, inappropriate method, inappropriate plan. So what are the measures over here? No, we have a work instruction, we have the training for the sampler, we have the proper way how to take the sample for each different way. So they are the preventive. Once you are done, just tell me yes, and then we will open the question. Just write down 4, 5, whatever comes in your mind, just write it down. And then you have to scrutinize whether it is right or not. Yes, Sridhar, you want to say something?
Sridhar,
Yes, sir.
I think he's calling Sridhar.
Oh,
Call
okay.
Sridhar.
Okay, I thought somebody else.
Oh,
Yeah.
you wanted to say something, Sridhar?
Okay.
No, Dr. Jagdish, I was, Dr. Prashant, I was just writing down.
Okay, perfect.
I was just writing down.
So write down the process, write down the source of the risk, and then what are the preventive measures or what are the actions you are taking currently in the lab to eliminate or reduce that risk, or what are you planning to take? If there is no preventive action now, there is no problem at all. You can add it. Okay, this is not meeting, so I will add these preventive measures in my organization to eliminate or reduce this risk. Those who are engaged in the safety, they will understand it very nicely because always we are doing the risk assessment there.
So I am done with, I have taken the process of calibration.
Wow, very good. So let us hear from everybody. So any one of them,
okay.
we can discuss one process.
Sure.
KVR, can you check with everybody?
Is everybody done? Can you please mention in chat that you are done once you are done? We'll give a few more minutes, one or two more minutes, sir. One more, just because we'll just wait until they finish.
Okay, no problem. Are we exceeding the time, SP?
Slightly more, but we are okay with that.
Fine.
You can go to a logical conclusion.
This has become like one mini training session, so it is wonderful.
Oh, that's great.
Because
People are really
because
enjoying.
usually we only share information, but I think this time we are also really getting into activity and learning. It is good.
Oh, I'm very happy to hear that. Okay, anyone who is volunteer to share his process? Anyone? He can just share.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Suryanarayan sir was starting, right? Somewhere he was.
Yeah, anyone who is interested to share, they can.
Later, Venkat Subramaniam sir has written answers in the chat, and then Srilal sir has also mentioned he is complete. So let's start with Suryanarayan sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had jotted it down on a note and I will tell verbally. I will not.
Yeah. Please.
Yeah, I have taken up the calibration. Calibration is a process to ensure that you get the validated results in your process. So how to handle the calibration? We have to first check, you go through the PDCA cycle, whether you have sourced a approved supplier, but he is accredited with your requirements, especially 17025. That laboratory also should be accredited with 17025. So here the risk is involved, the accreditation of the calibration performing external source. Secondly, your calibration plan and calendar. Looking into the validity of the results, whether you have to check whether your plan and calendar is suitable to the number of tests you are performing periodically, one monthly or half yearly or something like that. Then coming to, you have a risk. What is this risk? If you have too frequent, you may fail because you don't have any alternative instrument. The time consumed by the external suppliers is too high. So accordingly, you have to plan your this thing. Here is a risk, and that is the action. Planning your calibration plan and calendar is very important here. Second is when the okay, you have come to the stage where you have got a very good approved supplier, well accredited, and his certificate comes, and he has missed something like uncertainty, traceability of the national
So
standards.
very good list out. So can you tell some preventive measures what you are taking for this?
Yes, preventive measures is basically verification of the certificate by a competent person once you receive the certificate. So you need to have a checklist. What are the things you want to check with this certificate? Then okay, this is check, and it is according to our specification or the standard requirement.
Very good.
Two things. If it is not case there, you will have to look into the agreement, whether what was the agreement, whether I have missed it or not, or something like that. It cannot be assumptions like that. So then you will discuss with the laboratory. Okay, in the next action, okay, you will include more details so that you will not miss any of the verification aspects as per your checklist and the requirement.
Perfect. These are very good. See again here. Thank you, Srinarayan, for this very nice risk assessment. Again, risk assessment is not an absolute term or absolute process. It is a relative, because the person who is doing the risk assessment, he should not do it alone. He shall include the people who are associated with that process, including customer, vendor also. Again, it depends on that group. What is their competency? What is their knowledge? What is their background? How much experience do they have? This whole risk assessment is a relative term, how you are doing. It is always has the opportunity for improvement. So you cannot say you are right or wrong. This is relative. So when you are having some experience in that, for example, I am going to the aerospace. I am not expertise in that one, but someone is from the aerospace industry. He can have more insight on that one. So that's why it is a teamwork. It is not the individual work. So that you need to, again, you should not say, feel embarrassed though it is right or wrong. No, it is my business. I know I am the right person to tell whether it is right or not. For sampling, whether I am taking the sample of the gold and the coal, risk is different. The competency will be different. The preventive actions will be different. The preventive measures will be different. The monitoring will be different. So again, the risk is a relevant term to your business. Clear? Any question on the risk assessment?
Anybody wants to share?
Yeah, some more people have shared on the chat. Like for example, Mr. Venkat Subramanian has shared correlation between men and equipment can also be done. Equipment accuracy may be a risk. For equipment inconsistent environment may be a risk.
True.
And for accuracy, recalibration is done, is what he has written.
True. Yeah. So these are all the components. What are the best possible by your knowledge, skill, experience? Add it over there.
Correct.
And you need to have, because see, we are doing already. No thing is that only you need to list and put it over here. That's it.
And
is clear? Any question on this one?
Yeah, I think Mr. Anand Abraham has just given some risk and also told yearly validation of competence, surprise or random audits, upskilling, etc. are controls is what he has shared.
Yes, very good. Very nice. Very nice.
No questions as such, sir. No questions.
Okay,
So far.
then let us go ahead. We'll go to the next. We already said. So what actually the standard says? Standard has the 3 requirements: 8.5.1, 5.2, and 5.3. What it says? Why risk and opportunity shall be done. You shall plan for your risk opportunity. Then, assuming your intended results, what are my risks? So why should you do? So that 8.5.1 is talking about. You must plan, and then you shall take the action in order to eliminate or reduce the risk. This is the whole requirement of this standard. In whole this standard, you can say this clause, they did not ask for any document or record. It is up to you whether you want to document or not. If you document, it will be very clear. If you do not document, then you have to tell, oh, these are my risks, these are my preventive action. Then the assessor will get a little bit annoyed, and it is good for organization that things shall be documented always, because we have the diverse workforce with us. Everyone intellectual is different. Their IQ, OQ is totally different. So it is better to document. It is just suggestion. Otherwise, this document does not require any document or record here. Clear? Now let us go to the improvement. Improvement we have already discussed that the whole intent of any organization is to improve continually. There should be a continual improvement in your process. That will continual improvement in your business. Reliability shall be continually go. Customer satisfaction shall continuously go ahead. So the standard has given the 2 ways that how you can improve, go for the improvement. One is your internal things, your management review, your calibration records, your analytical trend, your maybe improvement logs or non-conformities, or your PT samples, or competencies. There are internal things you can take it for the opportunity for the improvement. At the same time, you can take it the other way. You shall seek the customer feedback, and from there you can improve your laboratory. Some customers are not, oh, your results are a little bit delayed, or your results are not precise, or your report is not coming in the right way. So these are the customers' feedback. You should take it and implement over here. Analyze all these customers' feedback. This is mandatory again. You shall seek the customers' feedback, and you shall analyze all the feedback and use it for the improvement of your business. That is the validity of result, not for the financial. Financial, if you are improving, accreditation will not bother for that one. No, they want to see that how you are improving the validity of the result, how you are improving the customer satisfaction over there. So this is the one thing. This is about the improvement. Then corrective actions. When we are talking about the correction, where we saw the non-conforming work, if anyone is deviating from any of your policy or any standard or accreditation agency's requirement, in that case, you should initiate the non-conformance. If any non-conform is there, first you have to correct it. There is a difference between the correction and the corrective action. For example, this coffee was here with me. I was drinking and I kept it and it fell down on my body. What is my correction? First of all, make myself safe. Just take it out. What is my correction? Whenever I take this coffee, I should not keep it over here because I'm making a movement of my hand. So what is my corrective action? Probably I will define one space here to keep my coffee. That is my corrective action. So you have to go to the whole cycle for all your non-conforming works. You should do the immediate correction. You should analyze that impact of that non-conformity on the validity of your result or the objective of your process. If it says no, correction is not enough, you need to have a corrective action. In that case, after analysis, you can implement the corrective actions and you have to keep the record for everything. So this talks about all the corrective actions in your organizations. Then internal audit is a very important factor. Important audit, you shall have there 2 requirements. One is the how to plan and how are you going to executions. Again, from planning to how you are implementing the audit observation. Whole cycle you have to describe over here, and you shall have a complete procedure, plan, audit schedule, audit program, audit criteria, competency of the auditor, how frequently you are going to use, how are you going to use, how you are going to identify the audit findings, how you are going to address the audit finding, how you are going to close, and how our records are being maintained, and it will be discussed with the management. All this cycle has to be addressed in this clause. You shall have your internal auditors, trained internal auditor or certified internal auditor, you can have it. Finally, the last clause is talking about the management review. Management review is the three-stage plan. You shall plan the management review. Number one, you can say it may be every month, every 3 months, every 6 months, every year. It is your discretion, depending on the risk of your business. But what should be the input of the? These are the mandatory input you need to discuss in your management review. You do it monthly, you do it quarterly, you do it yearly, nothing to do. Your management, the top management has to be involved in that one, and you should cover all these points A to O in your management review. One by one, you have to discuss. What was the previous plan? What was the internal audit? What are the corrective actions we have taken? How many tests taken? How many complaints were there? How many non-conformances were there? What corrections we have done? Adequacy of the resources, whether you have right resources or not, or you need more resources, or you are. So all these things has to A to O has to be discussed by some or another way, directly or indirectly, in your management review. And all the management review, when it comes to the outcome, all the record of the decision has to be implemented, and it has to be recorded. And you have to see that how your management system is improving. That improvement has to be shown there. The effectiveness of your management system, either the management system is working or not. You are very good in discussing the financial improvement, but management system you do not. So that is the need over here. This is all about the standards. And here I am done with all my training. Just let me summarize this one. We have started with the introduction to the ISO IEC 17025. What this standard is that, what type of laboratory is that, what do you mean by laboratory. Then we have discussed that, okay, it is testing, calibration, and sampling. These are the laboratory. And then who can use these standards, that also we have discussed. And then we have seen the layout of the whole these standards, how does it look like. And then we have seen the structure, and we went to the SP's house. I hope SP will call us on a very good dinner party one day in this beautiful house to us. Then we have seen these clauses are 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. These are the clauses where actually the whole information is being given. Then we have got to the general requirements. We have seen then with us we switch over to the structure requirement. We are talking about legal entity and all those things. Then we switch over to the next requirement, that was the resource requirement. So it was giving all different things about the people, material, equipment on the external provided services. We discussed all these things in clause. Then we switch over to the process requirement, which has the 11 different clauses, which is talk about the validation of the method, verification of the method, and non-conforming of the work, sampling, handling of the sample, technical requirements. All these internal processes were discussed here. And finally, we discussed about the management requirement, which is talking about your holistic way how to look at your management system. And with this, I am done. Thank you for tolerating me for almost 2 hours and 10 minutes. If you are sitting on any of the question, I will be happy and glad to respond. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.